morning we're going to watch Liz's presentation from Landscape Summit 2020, and she talked, as you can see up on the board there, and she talked about focusing on the mission, and basically we'll get into it. I don't want to spoil it, but really to preface it, it's that when you come to work, when you put on the Augusta uniform, you kind of push off everything else. Obviously, we want everyone to come here, express their individual identities. Everyone here has different gifts, talents, and abilities that we want them to use. But it's more the emotional side, the side that isn't productive, that we have to consider when we put on the Augusta uniform that can't be as prevalent, because it doesn't really help us make decisions and it doesn't help us be efficient, and it ultimately will affect the vision of the CEO. The CEO is the one who has the vision, so for us that's Mike, and because of his vision we aren't really the ones who are going to decide how to emotionally proceed in the company, if that makes sense. So Liz explains it a little bit better than I, but it's just a really important reminder of how a company should operate and what it means to be a part of a team when someone else is in charge, and how you can benefit them, and just getting through those unfortunate emotional things. Like a great example recently is like Ben and a job, like Ben and I could have been yelling at each other, getting mad, like, well, Jeff told me this, Jeff told you that, all of those things. But Ben and I didn't. We both just kind of sucked it up. It stung for both of us. I'm sure Ben hated getting yelled at. I hated getting yelled at. But we both just put up with it. We put our emotions aside and made sure we got the job done, and supported all the guys that Ben had under his project management. So that's just kind of the gist of it, and we'll just jump right in.
So I'm not like Mike, so I'm a little more of a reader, but I want to make sure I say certain things. So it's truly been an honor to get to meet each of you this weekend. I care a lot about you and your businesses, and I want to see you succeed in every way. I will share some things from our experiences and that I hope will encourage and challenge you. I'm always here for you to connect with on Facebook, Twitter, email, if I can help you. I don't know much, but what I do know, I'm willing to share. My talk will be focused on the mission. I'll be referring back and forth between what I'll call the number one, which will be the owner, and the number two, which will be the operator. And you can take whichever applies to you personally. So what is the mission? A mission statement is a brief description of a company's fundamental purpose. It answers the question, why does our business exist? The high view of Augusta has been to change the level of professionalism in our industry, and to create a team that is inspired by the work they do. But I want to talk more the boots on the ground mission, where you need character to embrace the minutia. The mission being the daily focus when you come to work, the route, the project, and the issues at hand. I want to point us in the direction that it's not about you, it's about the mission. And that will be more clear as we go along. So a little background about myself. Before I came to Augusta, I owned a janitorial business, and then I went into the medical field. I owned an in-home care business, and then moved to working at the hospital 6 nights a week on all the floors with a huge variety of caregivers and patients. 4.5 years ago, Mike called me and asked me if I would come to Augusta to be his office manager because I was someone he could trust. In my 2 small businesses, I didn't have a lot of business intelligence governing how I ran things. My strengths were communication with people, being organized, efficient, and I can grind for hours. The skills I lacked, Mike had. However, in the whole new industry and with a lot I didn't understand, I felt very insecure with my new position, and I've been out of my comfort zone since day one. But I learned to drive a tractor, a skid steer, load and drive dump trucks. For software, when I started, we used Lawn Pro, and then we moved to Service Autopilot. So there's different combinations of owners and operators. Could be a married couple, 2 siblings, 2 family members, or 2 friends. It's not typical to run a business with a stranger. For family of any kind, when there are issues that come up involving family related to the both of you, it can be challenging because if there is, say, a death in the family or another life event where both of you are deeply affected, it can impact the business. In the life of a business, there are transitions, changes in procedures, customer genre, team members and culture, personal lives of the owner and operator, as well as moving the owner out of the day-to-day. In the beginning of our business relationship, it was Mike and I and two crew in the field. We took calls, emails, loaded product, did deliveries, planned and scheduled jobs, just the two of us. He met with the clients and did estimates, and I prepped and sent them. All this was the two of us working together, communicating all day. We still joke that we've got things covered 24 hours a day because he goes to bed about 2 a.m. and I get up at 3. So we still communicate 24 hours a day, constantly sending each other ideas and feedback and updates for our team. As time has gone on, we've hired more office staff to help me and an estimator to take his place. So you want to define the roles of the 1 and 2. True entrepreneurs are game changers. They disrupt industries. They have a reputation of trying 100 things, failing fast, implementing what worked, and moving on. Mike is a breaker and a shaker. I'm the operator who implements the ideas of his ideas and the changes made. As you can imagine, this can get chaotic and frustrating at times and cause a lot of friction when you have the fast-paced day-to-day of our industry. So you want to know what you're good at, and you want to know what you're bad at, and then you want to focus on what you're good at. If you are not really good with numbers and business strategy, but the other of you is, that is not a negative thing. One of you might be great with customers and creating systems. Maybe you're the more patient one with the team. Both of you recognizing these things and both focusing on what you're good at and dominating, you'll be unstoppable together. Once you have established your specific defined roles, it's vital not to cross over into each other's lane unless it's an emergency. If you're equal partners with someone, it's vital your roles are defined so there's accountability to know that everything is going to be covered. For spouses, there needs to be defined roles, who's doing what at home, who's doing what at the business, and in what time frames. If you're married, some couples make a pact to shut down business and do family at a specific time of day. Others love the game of business so much they just talk incessantly about it and they're always planning. So you need to decide what is best for you. So if you're the number 2 and you want to build confidence in yourself, when you're first starting out, what skills do you need to master in your position? So I'm coming from the angle that you really want to be supportive and amazing at your job. This is, if you believe in the number 1, maybe love them, you're all in and you're trying to build something great together. There's a book called Linchpin by Seth Godin. I highly recommend that book. It gives tips on becoming invaluable to a company, so much so that they could not do without you, and that there is no amount of money that can be placed on you. To become that person who the owner can fully trust and depend on, you need to immerse yourself into what they have learned. You learn how they want things done, how they handle their customers, employees, and all business affairs. Remember, this is their baby. Their blood, sweat, and tears, they put into it, grinding it out, in most cases, long before you were around. So they will not relinquish any decision power or trust you completely until they have proof that they can do so. They have a lot of pressure on them that you don't know about at the beginning. Payroll, employees, growth of the company, and sometimes maybe even previous employees suing them. They need you to be the steady presence that they can depend on to always show up and have their back no matter what. A lot of times in the heat of the battle of the day, they can't fill you in, but they will later. They need to know that in that moment, you've always got their back no matter what. Again, we're focusing on the mission, that day's mission. It's got to go on, it's got to get wrapped up, and at times things are said that might come out wrong, but you just address it later, like get through the day. So for the number 1, when you first decide to hand off responsibility, it can be scary and daunting. Just start somewhere. You can make a list of what you can hand off. Phone calls, emails, invoicing, creating estimates. Say getting an office number and then have a voicemail on your cell with the office information, then discipline yourself not to answer it if it's a client. The number 2 will get those calls and contact you with their questions when the calls come in. Once you do that, don't ever go back to answering those calls on your cell. So if you do need to call them, you call them from the office from then on, if at all. There will be a ton of chatter between the 2 of you, and yes, it would be much faster to just do it yourself. At first, they will not do it as well as you. Just accept that they're going to mess up, and that's awesome because they'll learn. It's important that you use your power to lead them, not boss them. Another reason it's important not to go backwards once you've handed the task off is you can run into issues, say, when you hand off emails, for instance, and you're super busy and the owner jumps in to help, and he answers an email that's signed with his signature. It's a game changer for the customer who now thinks they have personal access to the owner again. So we ran into that, and we really had to redirect the customer because Mike was just helping out, did a quick email, and he thought, oh yeah, he's watching everything, so he thought he could communicate with him again. So I've taken a greater part of the load at Augusta now, and the transition of Mike's handing off process has been a challenging learning experience for us. In this past year, our goal was to move Mike completely out of the day-to-day operations by the end of 2019, and that's what we've done, like we met that goal. So what we did is we made a list of absolutely everything Mike does, and then we started breaking down who would do this until every task that he does was covered. We did all this before he left, so that when he wasn't there, that all of those things would be covered without, nothing falling through the cracks. So the owner and the operator relationship greatly impacts team culture. So no matter what you discuss, disagree on, argue about in private, no negative vibe or energy should ever exude from the 2 of you to the team, ever. Your employees are grown adults. They know and see when there are challenges and things that need to be figured out, and they know you're working it out together. However, they should feel secure in the fact that you are a united front when you come out in front of them. A professional does not let the team down because of their own personal issues. So Mike and I, we're family, and so because different times we've had mutual friends die or be hospitalized, we've taken shifts with ill family members all night and been at work the next day, and our team never knew. The day Mike had his accident, I'm sure you guys listened to a lot of what he says in the PTO. I drove him to the clinic, the ambulance came and took him to the hospital, and I went back to Augusta and did all the projects and the operation of the day with the guys without him being there to help. So when stuff like that happens, they know your family, right? So they still need to feel secure that you're always looking out for their best interest. I want to talk about the other you. There's a person that you bring to the business, and there's a person that goes home. So generally, books are written focused on a topic with a specific direction of influence. I recently listened to The Alter Ego by Todd Herman, and he talks about the challenges of being a hardcore entrepreneur at work, in business, but realized that that wasn't the guy his family needed at home. It wasn't working when he brought that personality to his wife and kids. He hung a little bracelet his kids made him right inside the front door of his home. And every day when he walks into the house, he puts on this bracelet his kids made him to remind himself that he needs to become someone else for his family, the daddy and the husband that they need. He talks about the author, and the author talks about the soldier and the police officers who changed uniforms to bring home a different man who isn't all militant and law and order. There is value to the uniform you wear on the mission. In the book Stealing Fire, the authors speak about the Navy SEAL. They teach that when they put on their uniform, they enter an altered state and move together in a high-stakes hot zone where egos need to disappear. There, they perform in ways not possible alone. They flip a switch and merge with their team. I loved when the Navy SEALs reflected back and they said for them, team thinking and intelligence were multiplied and their fear divided. Legacy, written by James Kerr, is about the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks. He speaks about their team jersey. They had a team Bible with language, vocabulary, and team ethos sayings with sayings like, leave the jersey in a better place, live for the jersey, die for the jersey, bleed for the jersey. It's an oral culture that applies the same when I put on my Augusta uniform. It helps if you've been up all night with a sick, screaming kid, or have a hangover, or fight with your significant other. You know that when you put the company uniform on, that you're going to compartmentalize, shut that off, shut yourself off, and put it away. You can wear your issues in your heart, but don't wear them on the sleeve of your business. You're now focused on the mission, not you, your headache, or that you're tired. You become the team. You are all about each other, getting the route or project done, whatever it takes, no man left behind. So I want to be focused on the high vision as well as the team fit of your daily mission when I interview new hires. So every question I ask to an interviewee runs through the filter, will they fit in our culture? I interviewed a gentleman a couple weeks ago, and I listened to his verbiage when he spoke about his previous employer. This guy, he had been wronged at every previous job, which I have no doubt. He had lots of experience, but we did not hire him. He emailed me later to ask why I wouldn't consider him moving forward in the interview process. I rarely respond to these emails in depth, but this guy would have been the perfect fit experience-wise. So I did take the time to respond, mainly because it was December and I had the time. So I'll tell you what I said to him, and you guys can use this too if you want. So, good afternoon, person. Sure, I don't mind sharing. It's important to an employer when they interview to hear from the interviewee what value they can and want to bring to the new company, how they can benefit, serve, and integrate the culture. Many employees have difficult and challenging experience in other companies and need to leave. However, if the presentation moves towards how they were wronged, then it's likely they will feel wronged by us as well. We want the focus to be bringing a positive and fresh perspective to a new company with belief that the new company has promise and will bring a lot of reward to you personally and financially. We highly value our people, team, culture, and all work very hard to set aside ourselves for the greater good of the mission we're working on. This is a pretty selfless environment. We feel we would disappoint you as other companies have in the past. We think it is important that you find a better fit than us. So that was, I kind of call that a sweet slam. So maybe like that.
Did you reply?
Huh?
Did you reply?
Yeah. Oh, he did reply. If you ever need a project manager in the future, let me know. He didn't get the point. So this may not seem like it fits with the mission, but you'll see how it ties in. So we have a no smoking, no drug policy at Augusta. And I know this seems completely impossible in our industry. I'm right up front with the interviewees, because I understand. So I tell them right away there's going to be a drug test. And I get it if they need their stuff. And then they're pretty open. And they might tell me, yep, I smoke recreational marijuana and did so 2 days ago. So I know he's going to fail, right? So being up front saves us both a lot of time. Before I'm giving him a job offer, he thinks he's an awesome guy and whatever, and then he fails the drug test. So then they're pretty, open and honest then with me. So being upfront saves you both time. In the day-to-day trenches, it matters huge. With P for P, it makes all the difference. So a clean, high-performing employee is not going to tolerate 6 stops at the gas stations or multiple 15-minute smoke breaks when their pay is directly affected by their coworkers' performance. We had a gentleman come to us. This is the one Mike was referring to earlier. He was highly recommended to us, and I actually called him and asked him to come talk to me for an interview. He smoked, though, so that would determine whether he could work for us or not. He had been wanting to stop, and his greatest frustration at his previous company was guys showing up after partying all night and stopping all day for smoke breaks with no consequences. So he's waiting around for them on jobs while they're sitting there, sometimes 30, 45 minutes, he said. So I gave him a good sell on our company. Told him I thought he'd be a great fit with our culture and our team. He had 20 years of experience, and he had a lot of experience with service autopilot, so I knew I could use him for a lot of things. So it came down to me saying, I really want to give you a job offer. So talk to your family and weigh things out. I said his hire date would not be for another month, so he could stop, feel horrible, get help from his doctor, and would be feeling a little better by then, and then I would hire him. So I told him I would know if he wanted to move forward when his application popped into me. So I haven't seen it yet, but I'm still looking for it. So there's a few good people out there that would fit in your culture experience-wise, but they don't meet the other standards, the high standards that you've raised. So I really owe it to our guys to bring to the game the same exceptional people they are, or those we recognize that have that kind of potential. So it's important. A lot of us, this is difficult for us because we're always pouring out for all the other people, but it's important to take care of yourself. So owners, operators, and team members, we all have a story. Everybody has past challenges and victories, and the employees have come to your business for various reasons and at different junctures in their life's trajectory, obviously, because they made a career shift. So are you on meds for a chronic illness you have? Do you take narcotics from a previous surgery or injury? Do you smoke pot or need nicotine because it's the only thing that helps you cope? Do you show up habitually late with a hangover? Unfortunately, our personal habits do affect the people we work with. We are with the people we work with more than anyone, if you think about it. We owe it to each other to show up our best selves. If you have side effects from these things that you need, that cause you to lash out, be irritable, and annoy everybody around you, then you want to figure it out for your people's sake. Let's not make it a miserable experience for everyone around you. This is for all of us, owners, operators, and the team. If there are work culture issues, have some real straight talk about your systems, roles, points of frustration, and fix them with input of the team. You eat the elephant one bite at a time. So if you do the hard work to change personally and together, I promise you, you're going to be a success together. So I speak from experience because of all the I'm sorry's I've had to say when I don't bring my best self to the mission. So this leads me to a topic that is really touches home and is hard to address. Speaking now back to the relationship of the owner, the number one, and the operator, number two. So I'm calling it the deep work, which you will all experience throughout your business and could have catastrophic results. I want to provide some stepping stones of success so you can be fortified and not stumble in this one. At some point, you will all be here. There's a book I'd like you to write down to read and listen to. And you've probably heard me say this before if you listen to me, but it's Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I've read it 8 times, so it's a pretty good book. So as the number two learns more about the business, they've given their heart and soul, they start to experience new feelings. They now care deeply for the team, the customers, and the business as a whole. They are now as good as, or even better at some things than the owner. They have been in the background, dealing with the daily minutia and grinding it out with the team, which has got to happen. Like, we need the owner to step out and oversee the bigger picture to plan for the future. So the number two may start to feel some anger, jealousy that the owner is the only one always out in the front. They're in the limelight. They get the glory for all the work and the things that you're making happen for them behind the scenes. So you'll struggle with this for a minute, but need to come to a place of resolution sooner than later. So this is not always an issue for you. Here's the hard facts. They own the business. In the end, this is not your gig. If they hired you to come on as their number two, project manager, office manager, whatever, you're still an employee on payroll. Even though you feel you've given your heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears, and made the business what it is today. If you cause enough grief, they'll want you gone. If you don't like it, you have the option to leave or shut your mouth and continue to let them lead as they see fit. To come face to face with this harsh, glaring truth will give some of you number twos a real gut punch. It can bring waves of envy and at times rage that in the end, you really are just an employee. If you owned the business, you would do things your way. They do it theirs. You are two separate people. There are no two humans that would run a business exactly alike. They call the shots. So there's a couple ways you can look at it. Number one, if you can make someone else's dreams come true, maybe yours will too. If you're facilitating the growth of a good place with a great culture, you have had an impact and made a difference. So acknowledge your value. Number two, start your own personal something that brings you fulfillment on the side that has nothing to do with the owner. Coach sports for kids, play in a band, join clubs or gyms with a genre of something you enjoy that has nothing to do with the work you share together. It's independent of the day-to-day, and it gives you validity as your own person. This is for the number two. When things are tough and you're mad and you want to leave what is a really good place where you make decent money, weigh things out carefully. Don't leave in a huff. Are you so proud that you leave this job for half the pay maybe and go somewhere else where there's no drive, vision, or team culture to do something great? Would it be the same elsewhere if you can't go deep and change? If you decide to start a side hustle, make sure it generates enough income to cover your current wage before you leave. And remember, the grass is not always greener on the other side. No pun intended. So for the owners, the number one, when we get to this place in your business, before you get so mad and frustrated that you want to fire number two for being so mad and frustrated, just try to see where they're coming from. Maybe they feel like they're building your kingdom, working 100 hours a week, they sacrifice to cover for you, and they still can't meet your expectations. Just stop a minute and acknowledge all that they have been for you. If you need to part ways, end it well together with money or helping them find another job. Or give them incentive to stay. Do you really want to lose all that you built together? So I'm going to just really talk from my heart now. Mike and I have been in these pivotal moments a few times. I've said some awful things. Mike is a saint, handles me well, and always forgives me for messing up. But my behavior has almost made us part ways, and my words could have led to damage that couldn't be repaired. If you're related, you're most likely really similar. This is incredibly awesome on one level because you get each other. It can also be the driving force of your breakups in business because you can't face whatever it is head on and figure it out. So heed my words of caution. Before you say horrible things you don't really mean and can't take back and do something stupid, step back, breathe, and readdress. Keep in mind the business is what it is today because the two of you have been phenomenal together. Focus together on your mission. And that brings me to my conclusion. For us, our mission is you. This is a very fluid and stressful industry. We do so many things in the day's mission, our focus can really get blurry. So let's be engaged and all in. Let's lead with our heart and by our actions. There are no shortcuts to greatness. No one gets anywhere alone. Together, let's change the level of professionalism in our industry, be relentless in our pursuit to change, and stay focused on the mission. Thank you.
So, anyone have any immediate takeaways from that? Brad, you were there for that live, right? Were you there?
I think I walked in as it was happening.
Yeah.
Plowing.
Does anyone have any immediate takeaways? Anything that stood out? Ben, you look like you're...
That Mike and Liz haven't always agreed on everything, little thing.
Yeah, right? I mean, that is kind of an interesting thing to think about. That like you can professionally disagree with someone, but keep it like completely unemotional, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Ben and I yesterday kind of disagreed on something, but we didn't like it wasn't an emotional thing. I was like, okay, I trust your judgment. That's fine. So you know, when there's trust, it doesn't have to be emotional, right? Trust is the only emotion involved in that transaction. I trusted Ben's decision, and I'm gonna let him make that decision. I didn't necessarily think it was the best, but I know that he thinks that it's the best, and he's the one who got eyes on site, so that's where trust is involved, right? So, Nick, do you know anything about that? Frank? You guys just look very, like, intense.
No, I don't know. Liz and I talked a lot about this stuff.
Right.
So, hi.
Good morning, Nick. He's sore. It is true though, and I'm sure you guys have felt this before, like you feel like you're just an employee sometimes and that you're doing somebody else's thing and you're only making, pennies, you feel like. But in the end, would you want all they're dealing with? Would you want the 5 years before we even came into the picture where they're working 24 hours a day? I remember before Mike hired me when I was working at the hospital, I didn't really know all that he was doing and trying to do. And I remember we had a family birthday party and he showed up because he was trying to be supportive of the family and he was just completely out of it. And I realized he had to go home and work all night and then go back to work and work all day. And he was trying to get his degree and start his business. So that was all happening while we were doing other things in our lives, right? So we have to keep that in mind that this was all before us. And it's just like I spoke with our employee that we let go the other day. And I said to him, if this was your business, you would do it your way. And if you want to do your own business, then you can go somewhere else and start one. You can do that. But it won't be the same if you're not with us. It's better that we put all of our talent together and build something great together, and I think it'll be beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, and I think if I were to add one final thing to that, I know when I kind of talked before we started this, is that we take out the emotion, we put on the Augusta uniform, and it's it's focusing on the mission. But there's a really cool balance that Liz has when she talks about it that I'm working on every day. Liz and I have these conversations all the time. That I was raised very pull yourself up by your bootstraps, work hard, figure it out. But there also is an emotional balance that so everyone here is aware, and I think it's very obvious in P4P and in profit sharing, Mike cares about us. So like Liz said, if there are issues, you can settle it outside of work, and if you need to part ways, settle it monetarily, offer them, another position, help them find another job, right? And I know Mike and Liz would be that way, where if there were issues outside of work that were genuinely affecting you, not just, oh, I'm mad, so today at work I'm gonna be mad, right? Like a genuine issue with your family, your friends, whatever it may be, Mike is always gonna be the type of person who's gonna be the first one to help and realize that that's a real, genuine emotion that needs to be addressed, right? Mm-hmm. So there's an important balance there, and it's hard. I am not good at that balance at all, but I'm trying to figure it out. So those are my 2 cents.
One thing I want to commend you guys on is that we are transparent enough that if we have something going on, we would let each other know. I remember one time Austin came to work and he said, I'm just letting you all know I'm not doing good today and I'm in a really bad mood, so if I lash out, it's not you. And I'm like, wow, I really appreciate that. So if things go south today, I know it's not us. I know you're having a bad day. So anything else? Anybody want to add? Okay, I appreciate you all. Have an awesome day.